Hi guys, welcome and who dat? I'm Joe and I'm here to review and react to the Thursday night game we just witnessed. The Jacksonville Jaguars coming into the Caesars Superdome to face off against our beloved bless you boys in black and gold, the New Orleans Saints. And a fierce fourth quarter comeback falls short. Final score, Jacksonville 31, New Orleans 24. Now, watching this game, the first half, is pretty aggravating. But by the end of the game, overall, I feel like not too bad. Could have been a lot worse. I'm sick and tired of being pessimistic about this season. I mean, basically, I feel like as long as the offensive line is struggling, this team is going to struggle. We had sort of a patchwork offensive line in this game, and they played pretty good, way better than I expected. And this, in turn, gave our team a better chance of succeeding. But I felt like Derek Carr didn't have a very good game. He didn't seem all that comfortable. He didn't seem confident in where he was going with the ball. But overall, despite my frustration and everyone's frustration with this offense, it was the defense that let us down in this game. They allowed 17 points in the first half, and technically they only allow 7 points in the second half. But, those are the 7 points that made the difference. So I'm not sure exactly how all of this is going to come together. I mean, the offense finally gets it together, scores more than 20 points. And it's a game when the defense can't manage to hold the team to under 20 points that they're playing. So it just seems like a big, inconsistent mess. And, before the game was over, before the fourth quarter, I was screaming for the head coach to be gone, for the offensive coordinator to be gone. We needed something different, the quarterback to be gone. Every time Taysom Hill lined up at quarterback in the second half, I was hoping it was permanent for the rest of the game. And then, of course, Carr comes up, a little lame late in the game. He got hit in the lower region, and yep, here we are, still riding with Carr. And let's pull up the stats and do this autopsy real quick. Like I say, the offense scores 24 points, so not too bad. Derek Carr finishes 33 of 55 for 301 yards. 1 touchdown, 1 interception. The interception was a bang-up play. The receiver, the cornerback are at the ball at the same time. It flies up in the air. Jacksonville's great linebacker from Atlanta picks it off and runs it all the way back for a touchdown. That hurts. And that, is a touchdown that could have, you could consider the difference. The ebb and flow of the game is pretty important. So when the defense allowed that last touchdown in the fourth quarter, it felt like the nail in the coffin. We had picked up some steam on offense, and my goodness, if we would have scored 7 points at the end of the game, we would have had more points in the fourth quarter than we did in any of the games total through the first 6 weeks. It didn't turn out that way, though. Running the ball, Alvin Kamara, 17 carries, 62 yards, an average of 3.6 a carry. He had a long of 17. This patchwork offensive line did pretty good in the passing game and in the running game. They only allowed 1 sack. They allowed a bunch of pressures, but I felt like Carr had plenty of time to throw the ball. Carr was he was finding it difficult to move around in the pocket. There were some plays where he looked stuck in the mud for a second there, and not unlike Jameis Winston at times. But as far as run blocking goes, this was a really good run front that we were facing in Jacksonville's defensive front. So I kind of knew the rushing yards would be hard to come by. Um, we ran it 31 times total. So I can't really complain much about the play calling. I wanted to when we weren't scoring a lot of points in the first three quarters, and I still think there's some major issues there. Derek Carr, incompletes 22 passes, and 16 of those incompletions went to wide receivers. And that just tells you that they're just not on the same page. Getting back to these running stats, Taysom Hill had 5 carries for 18 yards. That's an average of 3.6. It felt like Hill was willing and able in these situations. He scores a rushing touchdown. And, it came at a great moment. The 2-point conversion was good. It was an unbelievable play where we had Kamara and Hill lined up on the left side of the formation, and it was almost as if the defense wasn't quite sure who to cover. It's 2 playmakers there, 2 decoys, 2 people you have to pay attention to. Line them up on the same side of the field and make something happen. Well, Hill comes in. It's kind of like cutting off the cornerback from getting to the edge. He turns around, faces the ball like he's hitching up to get a touchdown pass immediately thrown to him, and leaves Kamara wide open in the left side of the end zone. Something simple like that, of just taking 2 playmakers and making the defense force who they're going to cover. Kind of like when you put Hill at quarterback and you have him do a run option with Kamara. You have him fake a throw or a pitch to Kamara. Those are the simple kind of things that this team could be doing on offense with the playmakers we have. Have Rashid come across the back of the formation. Fake it to Rashid. Fake it to Kamara, if you're Hill, and then take off. Those things put pressure on the defense. We just don't see enough of that with this team, and that's what frustrates me about the play calling. There was a commitment to the run here, despite the fact that they were good against the run, but just not consistent enough. I mean, I'm armchair quarterback sitting here feeling like it's really easy when you throw a quick pass to Michael Thomas and he catches it and turns it upfield for what ended up being a 17-yard completion. That seemed simple to me. That's stuff that we've been waiting for a month and a half. He's bigger than the guy he's going up against. Just have him turn around, throw him the ball, let him post up and catch it. Same thing in the red zone. Jimmy Graham's not to be seen. And there's a thin line between being obvious and hitting them with what your guys do their best. Of course, Taysom Hill's going to run the ball when he lines up at quarterback. We know it's kind of obvious. So you do a little handing off, you throw a pass or 2, and you mix in running with them. You still got to hit these guys with what you're good at. When you're in the red zone and Jimmy Graham's not running down there and just standing in front of everybody, posting up and catching the ball, it's one of those things that, you don't want to be obvious, but you still want to hit them with what else is Jimmy Graham going to do on this team? It's frustrating. Derek Carr scrambled 3 times for 14 yards. Rashid Shaheed had 1 carry for 4 yards. And Jamal Williams, 5 carries, 14 yards. He makes it back on the field from his hamstring injury. He averages 2.8 a carry. This is par for the course for Williams so far this year. However, there were so many plays the Saints had in the red zone. We finally scored. It was a 17-play drive. We finally made it in the end zone. But there was a set of downs where we just ran the ball and just couldn't get anything going. And the whole time I'm thinking, we've got Jamal Williams, a guy who led the league in touchdowns last year. And most people said it's because the only thing he's good at is goal-to-go runs. And we don't put Williams in there one time. I mean, it's like, is he good at it? Because if he was, we'd put him in there and we'd let him take a couple of cracks. I mean, is it too obvious? Well, then maybe you play action off of that. You have Kamara line up as a wide receiver. You put Williams in the backfield. You play action to Williams. Then you find someone to throw to. Perhaps Jimmy Graham or another big body like Michael Todd. Yeah, okay, so I'm not a head coach, and the Saints fans on Twitter aren't head coaches either, but we can all sit here and see that this team's struggling. And I guess hindsight's 2020. I don't know. I guess. It just seems obvious to me. We're having red zone inconsistencies, and we're trying to throw these fade routes to Thomas instead of a quick slant. Drew Brees used to throw that all the time. Just take the snap, throw it to Michael Thomas. He's in front of everybody, and he's bigger than them. So, receiving. Alvin Kamara was targeted 21 times. Ridiculous. 55 pass attempts, 21 targets to Kamara. He catches 12 for 91 yards. I'm sorry. He was targeted 14 times. I'm sorry. His long was 21. 14 targets on 55 attempts. 14 targets for Kamara, 12 catches. Okay. Kamara was getting the ball in space. It wasn't like he was catching it behind the line of scrimmage every time. It's a little better. 14 attempts to Kamara. Okay. The big one to me is 15 attempts to Chris Olave, and he ends up with 7 catches for 57 yards. Not a lot of yards. Not a lot of yards per catch. He had a long of 14. Olave was running the wrong routes. We saw Derek Carr screaming at him, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" Twice. And they try to act like we don't know who they're talking about when they talk about people not trying hard enough or studying hard enough. You know, Chris Olave is one of those guys. 7 catches is not bad. 15 targets. That means 8 incompletions. It's just too inconsistent. Okay, I'm spoiled. I'm used to receivers catching 7 out of 10 targets. So Taysom Hill, 4 catches on 5 targets, 4 catches for 50 yards, a long of 19. Taysom Hill did great again as a spot tight end. Wide receiver Michael Thomas was targeted 7 times. He only caught 3. We saw one of those the last play of the game. So Thomas, 3 catches, 42 yards along the 17, and he had a touchdown. So Thomas gets in the end zone for the first time this year. He kept the ball. Foster Moreau, 3 catches on 4 targets, 3 catches for 33 yards, and of course, the one drop in the back of the end zone that could have tied the game. Everyone's going to think about that. I was disappointed and immediately was fine with it because Morrow does so much dirty work in there. You know, I admire his play. He drops one. There's so many plays that could have gone the other way. It's crunch time. You got to make that catch. You have to. We would have tied the game. Extra point pending would have tied the game if you made the catch, and then we would have gone in overtime. And somebody else's play would have had to matter. As it stands, Morrow drops it. We don't have a chance to tie it. We had one more play after that, and it was incomplete to Thomas. Another deep shot in the back of the end zone instead of a quick slant. Anyway. And Rashid Shaheed, another guy that I think the players are yelling at when they say you need to try harder. He was targeted 8 times. He had 4 catches for 28 yards. Not good enough. 4 catches is fine. I mean, our quarterback's throwing the ball 55 times. So Derek Carr looks awful. And a lot of the times, the receivers are probably doing the wrong thing. But there were times when receivers were open and he wasn't hitting them. And he wasn't, it's like his whole timing is off. Dropping back, setting, going through the motions. He's not comfortable staying in the same spot. Sometimes I feel like his spots are different. And when you have different offensive linemen, they're not quite sure what to do. If you're not consistent, then you got a front that's not consistent. It just looks like a mess. I'm going to mention one other player on offense here as I take these stats down. Defensive tackle Colin Saunders plays fullback and does a pretty good job. I mean, that's a football player right there. I bet he can throw a pass. I bet he can catch a pass. I bet that man can do whatever he wants. And I was a little bummed out watching him play fullback because I figured he wouldn't be out at defensive tackle. Well, I guess we were pinning our ears back. We had figured something out against the run. We got gashed by the run pretty good. This defense, our defense, could not handle the motion and the tricks. We got burnt by a lot of stuff. There was a fake punt. They technically were 1 of 2 on 4th down because the fake punt worked. The running attack had motion involved. They were faking one way. There was a reverse kind of flea flicker thing that worked for them. You know, they had us against the ropes in the first half. We allowed 17 points. And in the second half, we kind of bottled up the run on early downs in the second half. Kind of made them want to pass. And then, you know, Trevor Lawrence gets out. We're in man coverage. He takes off running 8 times. He had a long of over 20-something yards, and that's what killed us in the second half. Ultimately, we didn't give up but 7 points on defense in the second half, and that interception return for the touchdown. Defensively, Paulson Adebo at cornerback leads the team with 7 total tackles. He also had 2 passes defensed, and he had a forced fumble. Adebo struggled very early in the game, and he had a pass interference call against him. His token 1 pass interference call. But after that, I think he had a hell of a game. I got to give him props. You know, passes defended are hard to come by in the last couple of weeks. Adebo gets 2 of them and forces a fumble and makes 7 tackles. So kudos to Adebo. Carl Granderson, another guy that deserves our spotlight, 6 total tackles, including 1 tackle for a loss, and he had a fumble recovery. The problem with Granderson, and like I say, he's one of the players of the game, but they had a rookie right tackle going up against Cam Jordan. And I didn't watch it closely because I didn't watch the game twice. But I assumed that they were going to give help on that side for that rookie to keep Cam Jordan in place. So either they focused their help toward Cam, which kept Cam quiet. I don't have any stats written down for Cam Jordan. I didn't count anybody that had only 1 tackle or no tackle. So, but Cameron Jordan was, you know, missing in action in this game. And I'm not going to sit here and think that that rookie did it all by himself. So it makes me think that Carl Granderson, you know, should have been Carl Granderson, Nathan Shepard, Brian Bresee, Colin Saunders when he was out there, Malcolm Roach. These guys should have been getting lots of pressures and a couple of sacks. We didn't have any pressures on Lawrence, and we didn't sack him. So, you know, Lawrence took off running 8 times. And in those 8 plays, maybe we would have had a pressure had he not taken off running. But it just blows me away to think that a rookie went up against a first ballot Hall of Famer all day long and won. So shame on you, Jordan, or shame on you, rest of the defensive line. But Granderson was okay. Brian Rasee had one pass defense, and that was it. He played a lot of snaps. And to get no pressures, to get no tackles, it's disappointing. Alontae Taylor had 6 total tackles. He got hurt and left the game and came back. Pete Werner had 4 total tackles. Preacher Man, Demario Davis had 4 total tackles. Maybe he should pray for an interception or a sack or something else. Something else besides losing. Malcolm Roach, 3 total tackles and a tackle for a loss. Roach was active. Tyrann Mathieu, 3 total tackles and a busted coverage on that last touchdown where a couple of tackles were missed as well. They explained that in post. It was the perfect route to run against the coverage they called. Mathieu would have had to have been, 5 years younger to catch up and make the play. Zach Bourne, 3 total tackles. Marcus May, 3 total tackles. Marshawn Lattimore, 2 total tackles, but a pass defensed. Jordan did have 2 tackles, and he had a pass defensed. So there's that stat. And then Lonnie Johnson Jr. finally gets back from his injury, and he had a fumble recovery. Kudos to Lonnie Johnson. And after that, Jordan Howden, he was the final guy to miss a tackle on that last touchdown. He didn't have any stats worth mentioning besides that missed tackle. All right, so on third down, the Jaguars were 2 of 11. We were 3 of 18. We ran a ton of plays. 87 plays. We had 12 drives, 87 plays. Last week we had 78 plays, and the other team had 60. And I thought having 18 plays more than the other team was crazy, in that we only lost that game like we did. We couldn't manage to score a touchdown when we needed it. That was 18 more plays. In this game, Jacksonville had 56 plays, and we had 87. We had 31 more plays than the other team. I mean, dinking and dunking. 31 more plays than the other team. That's why we had 18 third down attempts. We only convert 3. So we go for it on 4th down 6 times when we don't convert on 3rd down. And on those 6 4th down attempts, we actually made 4 of them. So overall, it's a hot mess. But I would say converting 4 4th downs means that you instead of getting the 3rd down, you get the 4th down. So if you look at it that way, we're 7 out of 18, which is still not good enough. Not good enough. Unbelievable. 31 more plays than the other team. We held the ball for 36 out of the 60 minutes. So we had an advantage of time of possession, 36 minutes to 24 minutes. We had 407 total yards. They had 330. Now that, to me, is inexcusable. We held New England to 153 total yards, something like that. I'm used to this team holding the opposition to under 300 yards. So to see 330 hurts. To see 31 points on the board hurts. Of course, the interception return for the touchdown, so the defense allows 24 points. But still, this defense has a standard. It's not like we're asking you to be the 91 Dome Patrol, which you are not. Because the 1991 Dome Patrol held teams to 13 points a game on average through 16 games. Okay. All right. So holding a team to 20 or under is good for this defense, and it's what I expect from this defense. I'm not asking them to be the 1992 Dome Patrol, which held teams to 12 points a game. Okay? 1991, we held teams to 13 points a game. 1992, we held teams to 12 points a game. In 2023, we're holding teams to 20 points a game. And that's the standard. So when you allow 24 points, okay, it's not good enough. Not for this particular team to win. Not for this offense who can't score over 20 points. So I can't blame the offense for the whole thing. The first three quarters were insanity, but it was the same thing. It was a mix and match. First of all, we get a fumble recovery, and we get that crazy muffed punt that we recovered that Jacksonville screwed up on. Their great kick punt returner that got ran into by another player, and so we had 2 turnovers, and we only got 3 points out of that. That hurts. Now, if we don't miss the field goal, and we get 6 points out of that, then it feels a little different. It sucks that we're not getting touchdowns in that first half, but if you don't miss that field goal, it's 17-9 instead of 17-6. So 17-9 is a 1-possession game. You feel a little better. You know your offense isn't good enough, and we're not punching it in when we need to. But without the missed field goal, it feels a little better. I mean, God forbid if on those 2 turnovers that we force or recover, that we get a touchdown out of one of them. But it's just little things. A missed field goal. As bad as everything is, if you don't miss that field goal, it doesn't feel so bad. And then, of course, we finally pulled it within a possession, and then they returned an interception for a touchdown. It just makes you feel like this team's pathetic. Are they even worth cheering for? Then they go into this, about midway through the third quarter, they go into this hurry-up offense, which you can't do all game long. But what you can do if you need a spark, it seemed to work for the Saints. They had a bunch of plays. They had a long drive. The Saints had the ball for 13 and a half minutes in that third quarter. Just completely kept Jacksonville out of it. And when it's all said and done, Jacksonville still has 7 points in the quarter because of the interception return. That's why we had time of possession so much in the third quarter, because they scored so quick on defense. And in the fourth quarter, which, we scored 2 touchdowns plus a 2-point conversion, which is insane. And then we're right there knocking on the door to tie the game. If we could have had 3 touchdowns in 1 quarter, that would have been impressive for any offense. But even though we lost the game, that I'm still going to feel a little good about that. I mean, is it going to take all game to figure this stuff out before we finally click? I hope not. Because at this point, I'm ready to get rid of Pete Carmichael. I'm ready to get rid of the long-ass, paragraph-long play calls. I'm ready to get rid of how much you got to talk with the footnotes and everything else when you're changing a play at the line of scrimmage. I'm ready for some simplicity. Now, I know John Gruden's offense is similar to ours, and I'm pretty sure that the language is kind of similar, probably more simple than Sean Payton. So when I think about making a change at offensive coordinator, I think about you wait till the end of the season. You're probably going to change head coaches too. And then if this happens, you're going to have a different defensive coordinator as well. So you're going to have a different everything. If we don't get where we need to go at the end of this year and we make wholesale changes, that's what's going to happen. But if you want to make a change before the season ends in hopes that this talented team can do something, John Gruden might be your answer. Now, there's the controversy and everything else, but there's one thing about football. If you're a winner, we tend to forgive. And in the South, in this fan base, the way we're starving for a good offense, yeah, I don't think we would have issues with John Gruden being our offensive coordinator. If we got rid of Pete Carmichael in the next 10 days and we appoint John Gruden as our new offensive coordinator, and this offense starts scoring points, I don't think anybody in the league's going to say it's a bad decision. But that's really the only way I see mid-season to make a change. Other than that, you keep Pete Carmichael and you just let Ronald Curry and the players have a hell of a lot more in what happens and what's said and what happens on game day. Because it doesn't make sense to me that these players and these coaches aren't talking constantly about what's working and what will work. The players are out there doing this. I got to look at the head coach and the quarterback in this situation. I'm spoiled to Sean Payton and Drew Brees. I'm spoiled to the mic'd up games where Sean says, "What about this?" And Drew says, "I like it." And Sean says, "You like it? Well, let's do it." I'm spoiled to that. And that great mic'd up moment in the first week when Derek Carr says, "Let's do this." And OC and the coach says, "Okay." And then he goes tell the wide receiver, "Just run like hell." Yeah. Communication. I know when you ask questions, it's communication as well. Questions like, "What the hell are you doing? What the hell are you doing? We've been practicing this for 7 weeks. What the hell are you doing?" All right, red zone, biggest problem. We're 2 of 5. Hey, we got in there twice. They were 2 of 2, running the ball, of course. They averaged as a team 4.3 yards a carry. We as a team averaged 3.6. I think that's fine. We ran the ball 31 times, passed it 55 times. I think that's fine. I mean, I would have liked to have seen maybe 6 more runs, 5 more runs. Jamal Williams maybe in the red zone. Taysom Hill more in the red zone. Jimmy Graham when you are passing. Quick passes, quick slants. What happened to the quick pass with the big receivers? I can't wait for Juwan Johnson to come back. We sorely miss him. We need him. Blake Grupe ends up making 3 field goals. So I hate to tarnish him. I don't even hold the one he missed that could have won the game in Green Bay against him as much as I hold this one against him, because he had 2 misses last week. So to come out and to miss one in the first half is just, it's not a good look. Now you've missed 4 on the year. So, but 3 out of 4 ain't bad. Headley was awful. He had one line drive that the returner couldn't get to, and when it hit the ground, it took a huge Saints bounce. That ended up a 62-yard punt. But the other line drive went straight to the returner, and they ended up across the 50 before he was tackled. Headley only averages 42.3 for the game, even after that 62-yarder. But I think he only had 4 punts, and 2 of them were inside the 20. We need another punter. There's no doubt about this, in my opinion. I'm fine on Grupe for now. This game, all with the fake punt, with the flea flicker, with all the motion, and then the run to the outside. You got a running quarterback, so the pressure's not as much because I think the defensive line's playing to the quarterback. He still scrambles 8 times, but no sacks, no pressures, no interceptions, a couple of fumble recoveries. So we win the turnover battle. We win the time of possession battle. We win the drive battle. We win the number of plays battle by 31. And we almost had as much rushing yards as they did. But in the end, it doesn't work. It all kind of just falls apart. In my opinion, we're not a very good team because we're dysfunctional. I think we have a lot of good players that show up from time to time. Right now, to me, Michael Thomas is the most consistent wide receiver. The offensive players of the game, Alvin Kamara is a beast. I feel bad for him at times. He's a great player, having to run behind, patchwork offensive lines. And yeah, he's the offensive MVP to me. He had 150 something total yards. He didn't get in the end zone, but hey. Quarterback Taysom Hill, what can I say? I wish he would have lined up more than 5 times at quarterback, but he does gain 18 yards on the ground. He does get 50 yards through the air, and he's in there blocking as well. Quarterback Taysom Hill, he's worth every dime of that $10 million we're paying him. Michael Thomas, to me, the most consistent receiver, and shout out to Colin Saunders playing some fullback. How about that? Good job. And I also want to give a shout out to the offensive line. Andres Pete playing left tackle for the first time in like 4 or 5 years, and he didn't do that bad. And then the guy we brought up from the practice squad, Irvin. Kudos to you coming out and playing right tackle and being a good teammate and making things happen. Kudos to Garcia at left guard too. He's got a couple of games under his belt now. That offensive line seemed to work better than any other combo we've had so far. And I know that that's not what we're going to do. I know that if Hurst can come back, we're going to put Hurst at left tackle, and we're going to have Pete at left guard. That's what we want. We want Ramczyk at right tackle. And until we see that line up, then we're not going to know exactly what we're dealing with. But this offensive line did good. And our defensive players of the game, I think the defense failed us this week. And I'm going to give kudos to cornerback Paulson Adebo and defensive end Carl Granderson. I also think Malcolm Roach did good. Okay, so there you go. That's my review and reaction. Overall, I should be more frustrated, but I'm not. Not a bad job overall. We scored 24 points. The defense only allows 7 points in the second half. The game came down to the wire, and I think if you were a fan at home watching this game, it got pretty interesting in the second half. And it overall turned out to be a pretty good game. Just wish it could have been a win for the Saints. We are now 3-4. And we have this weekend to look forward to see what the other teams in our division do, as us Saints fans have to do too often. We have to watch and see if the other teams in the division lose to know how good we are, where we stand. We're not that good, but I think we're close. I think having this break is a good thing. I think that 10 days off and the offense having that much success in that last quarter, and also a time to make a change if we're going to make a change, a time for players to heal up. Personally, I think we should put Landon Young on IR and just put Irvin on the active roster. There's a lot of changes we could make. I'm going to break down the roster in my preview video for our upcoming matchup next week against the Indianapolis Colts. So subscribe to Rosenfield 10 for more videos like this, and I'll talk to you later. Who dat?